everybody, welcome to another episode of Digging Up Bone. I feel like Drew Carey, or what's that show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? What's he say? Welcome to Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the games are all made up and the points don't matter. I need to come up with something like that. Something like, welcome to America, where evolution's all made up and the facts don't matter. Anyhow, well, welcome to another episode of Digging Up Bones. And today, on this episode, we're going to ask the big question, what about the Giants? Well, if you can see me close your eyes or something, I'm sorry, I ain't pretty to look at. And I'm not much of a speaker, but there is some serious issues, especially with the Smithsonian Institute. They are responsible for so many cover-ups, and they are very responsible for covering up the evidence for giant races. They have been, since the 1800s, hiding anything that goes against the evolutionary teaching. I mean, they are, how do you put it, world renowned, or they're well known for that. Up under the Smithsonian, there's a city of tunnels. There's thousands and millions of artifacts that is never viewed. The public will never see it. And so many things that are hidden, and so many things they've destroyed. They destroyed more than they've ever helped. And I have a big problem with this because, you know, they're deliberately altering our perception of a historical past, of where we come from, who we are. Now, why would they be against the giants? Why would they cover up the record of the giants? Well, the evolutionary theory teaches that we are coming from a smaller, undeveloped primate, ape-like ancestor, and slowly been evolving and working up for millions of years. That's what the evolutionary theory wants you to believe. And any information on the giant race would prove the Bible right. We have many verses in the Bible, like Genesis chapter 6 and verse 4 says, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. So we know the story of David and Goliath, and we've got, you know, biblical records. There's so many biblical verses and texts that talks about this races of giants. And the Smithsonian wants to erase these giants. Here is a article that I found on World News Daily Report that says the Smithsonian admits to destruction of thousands of giant human skeletons in the early 1900s. The U.S. Supreme Court ruling has forced the Smithsonian Institute to release classified papers dating the early 1900s that proves the organization was involved in a major historical cover-up. I hope this is right. World News Daily Report should be a credible resource. I hope this report is correct, but that will not erase the damages done. Here is a picture of a young man in Ohio. This was a human femur that was uncovered in 2011. But not many people hear about these things because the evolution religion does not want you to know about these things. But I've gathered up a little bit of information on a couple of things that might interest you. I hope it does. And we're going to talk about some of these. And this is not at all close to all the evidence on any of this stuff. And it's definitely not anywhere close to all the evidence of giant races in the world. This is just a couple that I'm interested in and doing some research on and studying with. So, have you ever heard about the Si-Te-Cah? The Si-Te-Cah was a legend that the Paiutes and the Native American tribe, indigenous tribes to parts of Nevada, Utah, and Arizona spoke about the Si-Te-Cah. They told stories about this race of red-haired giants. And they named these giants Si-Te-Cah, which literally means is tool eaters. Now, if you don't know what the tool is, let me see. The tool was a water plant that the Paiutes claimed that these Si-Te-Cah giants took these water plants and created rafts that they used. They wove it together tightly and created rafts, and they used these to get away from the Paiutes. These giants, according to the Paiute legend, was cannibalistic, vicious killers. They were ruthless, and some of the Paiutes said that they could kill a man just by looking at them. These men were ruthless, and they caused a lot of havoc, eating the Paiutes and all the tribes that live next to them in Nevada area out through there, in Arizona. All the tribes in this area finally got together and declared war against the Si-Te-Cah to wipe them out. Their sole intention was to wipe this race out. They wanted to get rid of them. And they were so successful at waging war against this race of people that they finally got them down to the final few and chased them into a cave in what is called, Lovelock Cave in Nevada. They chased these guys into the cave, and once they got them all in there, they actually closed the front of this cave up with wood and stuff and trees. They packed the front of this cave full of things that was combustible, and they lit the fire, and smoke inhalation killed them, and the ones that didn't die from that, by legend, they told that they suffocated and died, or they starved to death inside this cave. But they finally annihilated the last few remainders of this red-haired race of giants that had been terrorizing them for a long time. Well, in 1886, a mining engineer named John T. Reed heard of the legend from another group of Paiutes in Lovelock, Nevada. And these Paiutes was telling him the story and told him that it was real and that the cave was nearby. Well, either Reed got directions to the cave from these Paiutes or they took him there. I don't know. But he was able to locate the cave. And when he did see the cave, discover the opening, he got excited and spent a lot of time up there, but he couldn't excavate a lot by himself. But in his efforts and research and staying up there a lot, he attracted a lot of attention until he discovered some guano. Now, if anybody doesn't know what guano is the bat feces. And at this time, well, I guess it still is a highly it's worth a lot of money because it's the best fertilizer that you can get, really. I mean, you can grow anything in this stuff. And the fertilizer industry was using it, but it was also being used as one of the main ingredients for gunpowder. There's a lot of ingredients in bat guano that they put in gunpowder. So at this time, it was very expensive stuff. So when David Pugh and James Hart come into the scene and discovered that there was guano up there, they immediately started a company in 1911. Now, shortly after they started their company, they shipped 250 tons of guano to San Francisco. Man, these guys was in deep crap. 250 tons is a whole lot of bat crap. But they got it out of Lovelock Cave. Now, in the process of getting all this out of Lovelock Cave, they were a lot of artifacts that were destroyed, neglected, just thrown around. They really wasn't paying any attention to that because they were making tons of money on this guano. So, they really follow the almighty dollar. You know, the human race, we are a unique creature. You know, we don't care what we're destroying if we're making money at the time. So, I mean, when you're looking at 250 tons of marketable product, the other stuff they could have cared less about. And, I mean, we've seen a lot of that today, in the not so distant past here in Tennessee with the strip mining companies. They come in and tear the world down, but they didn't care what they was tearing up as long as they was making money. And they did. They made a lot of money strip mining coal out here. But in 1912, a year after they started their company, the University of California took on excavations in Lovelock Cave. Well, they came back in 1924 and took excavations in Lovelock Cave. And they found thousands of artifacts in this cave, and a lot of these artifacts were wooden duck decoys. Evidently, the Si-Te-Cah were good duck hunters, and they made decoys. Now, we're talking about generations, centuries ago. You know, and they made, you can get online, you can search up Si-Te-Cah and find information on these guys. They might have been evil, ruthless man-eaters, but they wasn't stupid neither. But they were a big race of people. And amongst all of the artifacts that they found inside these caves, they found 2 giant mummies. This is them right there. 1 male, 1 female. 2 giant mummies they discovered in this cave, along with 10,000 other artifacts. The female is 6.5 feet tall. The male is over 8 feet tall. He's a big dude. I can't imagine how many people it would have took to wrestle him down, but the Paiutes did it. And they're not a real big race of people. But they also discovered this. This was a sandal that measured over 15 inches long, and it showed signs that it had been worn. Now, there is a small museum just real close to Lovelock, Nevada, that has a lot of, you can go to that museum today, and you will find a lot of these artifacts, and it is centered around the Lovelock Cave. You'll find the duck decoys, among all kind of other artifacts. But what you will not find are the mummies. You will not find this sandal. According to resources, they ended up in the Smithsonian, buried deep down in the cellar, and has never been seen since. Why? Well, it goes against the theory of evolution. They protect this theory with religious fervor. I have a young lady in my church that made a statement here a while back that I love and I've adopted. If the horse is dead, get off of it. It's that simple. Evolution is dead in the water. Scientific evidence proves the Bible more and more accurately every day. We're getting more and more discoveries all the time, and the evolutionists are getting busier and busier hiding more than they're discovering. I mean, this is nonsense. There's one thing that they could not take out of this cave, and that was this giant handprint. If you'll see, there's a thumb here, fingers, there's a pinky finger right here, there's his palm. This was a giant handprint. He's got this dagger up here for size. This was a big hand. There really was a race of red-haired giants that tortured the Paiute Indians in Nevada. But how many of you have heard about these things? We have the proof. We have the evidence. And, you know, our best evidence has been swiped, grabbed, and stolen and thrown either underground or already destroyed so it can't never be brought back up. This is ridiculous. How about this? This is a nice little old place. I've grew up here in Tennessee all my life, and I have been multiple times to the old stone fort. Now, many of my friends would know exactly what I'm talking about when they watch this video of where the old stone fort is in Manchester, Tennessee. This is a beautiful spot, and it is a very historical place and very unique. I will read to you what Wikipedia has about the fort builders. It says the old stone fort remained a mystery until the University of Tennessee conducted archaeological excavations in 1966. Throughout the various 19th and early 20th centuries, various theories tried to identify the builders. In 1823, a pioneer, a Jackson, Tennessee newspaper argued the old stone fort was built by buccaneers from Seville after one of their ships wrecked off the coast of Florida and forced them from inland. In mid-20th century, the discoveries at Lance Oaks Meadows and the discovery of apparent Viking artifacts in various parts of North America led many to believe the Vikings built the stone structures in the eastern USA, including the old stone fort. Now get this. The first serious investigation of the old stone fort was conducted by Joseph Jones for the Smithsonian Institute in 1876 and uncovered several prehistoric artifacts. He was followed by Tennessee State archaeologist P.E. Cox in 1928, who dug several trenches and analyzed the fort's composition. In 1966, after the purchase of the old stone fort, the University of Tennessee Department of Anthropology investigated the structure's organs origins. I can't read neither. Digging a series of trenches and test pits and conducting extensive research. The investigators determined the builders to be Native Americans of the Middle Woodland period. Charles Faulkner, a member of the excavation team, based this on 3 findings. Radiocarbon analysis of charcoals found within structural walls, all dated to approximately 30 to 430 AD in the Middle Woodland period. The structure's composition, setting, and layout is similar to other structures built by the Middle Woodland cultures, such as the Hopewell people of Ohio and the Pinson Mound Builders in West Tennessee. Between 1966 and 1971, 5 Middle Woodland settlements were discovered within 20 miles of the old stone fort, including a substantial habitation area 3 miles downstream. The University of Tennessee determined the fort was built gradually over a period of several hundred years. The builders are believed to be distinct local Middle Woodland cultures known as the McFarland and the Owl Hollow cultures. The first beginning work in the 1st century AD and the second completing it. That sounds awful good, especially with my reading. But there's some things that they failed to mention. And, of course, if it's on Wikipedia, it's supposed to be concrete, right? Well, let's look at some pictures of this fort. This is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful scenery, and it's got a beautiful history. I don't know why people... Look, this is the fort from the backside. I have been here. I've actually stood in the parking lot of this place and preached. And had a good time. There's going into the museum. It is a museum today. And this is the top of the fort. You can actually stand on this top edge of this old stone fort and look out over the river. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you ever have an opportunity to go and see this fort in Manchester, Tennessee, you really should. This is a wonderful historical place and got a wonderful history. And it has got some hidden history that evolutionists don't want you to hear about. But there are things and mysteries behind the old stone fort. I found a blog that had some information on this fort. And here's some things that they had to say. In the Hartford Weekly Times, published March the 30th in 1872. Now, if we go back up here, let me get back to where it was. They claim that the old stone fort was conducted, the first serious investigation of the old stone fort was conducted by Joseph Jones of the Smithsonian in 1876. That's the first serious investigation, right? I need to learn which way to click this thing. I keep going backwards. Hartford Weekly Times, March the 30th, 1872, published a race of giants found in an underground tomb under old stone fort in Tennessee. This was 1872. Near this city is a cave commonly known as Bone Cave, from which have been brought at various times by boys and other persons who have tried to explore its hidden recesses. Human bones of unusual size. The popular legends of the people are to the effect that it is somewhat connected with the people or race which created the old stone fort, which stands a short distance to the west of town. A few days since, some boys discovered an almost entire skeleton of mammoth size. The bones of the forearm were nearly 20 inches long, while the bone of the lower part of the leg was longer than any ordinary man's limb, foot and all. The jawbone of this giant would slip over the face of an ordinary man. Stimulated by these discoveries and a laudable desire to learn the secrets of this mystery cavern, on last Thursday, six gentlemen, now this is not a serious investigation, right? Six gentlemen, including the editors of this paper, made this necessary preparation and started out to explore the Bone Cave. Now here's a picture of the old stone fort. Right? The article continues. The gateway to the northeast is aligned to the summer solstice sunrise. The hilltop ceremonial center is very similar, if not identical, to those found in Ohio. The giant human skeletons found are conclusive evidence that old stone fort was constructed by the same people. After an exhilarating walk of 2 miles through a clear bracing air, we reached the entrance of the cave. Where divesting ourselves of our overcoats and lighting our torches, we entered one of the many passages. But after a short scramble, we found further advance stopped by large pieces of rock that had fallen and blocked up the passage. Soon other members of the party came down and explorations commenced. We found ourselves in a vaulted chamber about 25 feet wide and 60 long. The passages leading in every direction. Following one, we rambled on for 40 to 50 feet, and then there appeared one of the most beautiful lakes we have ever seen. The water was clear and sweet, and the ceiling over the water, studded with stalactites, reflected back in the light from our torches like gems. We had no means of ascertaining the size of the lake, for the banks were perpendicular and it seemed like a pearl set in a bed of rocks. Another passage, which was explored by B.F. Fleming, was found to extend in a direct line toward the old stone fort. The passage followed for a distance of nearly 200 feet when further progress was stopped by the passage being filled with debris. The passage looks as if it had been cut from the solid rock by the hand of man, and gives rise to the hypothesis that at some time far back in the Dark Ages, this cave was used by a race of men, of giants, if you like that, built with this stone for the mounds, and that this underground passage led from the fort to the cave, a mile distant. After a good look at this part of the cave, we returned to daylight, having been underground 3 hours and traversing over a mile inside the cave. After partaking of a lunch sent us by a very hospitable lady whose name we have mislaid, but not her kindness, we had a short search in the tunnel known as the Dead House. Here we found many bones, but all in a state of decomposition and decay. This tunnel or chamber is coated with a soft, loose soil to a depth of a foot or more. into which one can plunge a stick with perfect ease, while all the rest of the cave is solid rock. Now that's the article written in 1872 before the first serious investigation by the Smithsonian Institute on the old stone fort. I believe we've been dealt a bad deal. I'm sorry for my stutter in my reading. I know it kind of gets monotonous, but hey, I'm just a hillbilly. But knowledge is knowledge. This knowledge needs to get out. We have been sold a pack of lies for too long. We are not stupid. We know better than this. And if the good Lord is putting information in my lap, He is not putting it in my lap for me to keep my mouth shut about it. He's putting it in my lap for me to tell you guys. So please understand that I may stumble on my words sometimes. I'm trying hard not to use double negatives and the ain'ts and the stuff that I ain't supposed to be using, but I've got hillbilly to my core. I'm trying to make a good video. I'm trying to teach and educate what the Lord is showing me. We have been sold a pack of lies by evolution too long. They have been destroying our history too long. They are the great destroyers of history. Evolution is the biggest hindrance that there has ever been in science. Hey, I got that line right. Has ever been. Sounded good to me. It's the biggest, hindrance that has ever been to science. Here's a picture that was taken in Bone Cave, near the old stone fort. Underground. How many of you guys right here in Colmont, Grundy County, how many of you people that live in Coffee County right next to this thing and never knew that they were a race of giants discovered under it, let alone a lake? Guys, this has been another episode of Digging Up Bones. All of you out there that are Christian people that pray, please keep us in prayer. Because I'm trying to prove that your Bible can be trusted. My whole point in all of this is to expose the lies and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt in your mind that God said what He meant, and He meant what He said, and His word can be trusted. I'm after you. And I hope in some way that God can use this to show you that even though the truth has been hidden from you, that the truth is still achievable. We can still rediscover these discoveries. We can still have enough. God has got our backs. And in spite of all of their efforts to destroy all traces, there's still enough evidence that we can prove them all wrong. And every discovery that we make proves more and more that the Bible is absolutely scientifically provable in every way. It's the most accurate historical book that has ever been written. My name is Ricky Phillips. This has been another episode of Digging Up Bones. Keep us in prayer. And if you haven't accepted Christ, please consider it. Because it'll be the best thing you've ever done.